Hey friends, it is your creative weird makeup artist pal Cat Sketch to bring you another makeup series. This is one of my all-time favorite movies, books growing up. It's like my childhood all in one because we are going to be doing a makeup series of The Wizard of Oz. I thought, why not tell the creepy stories behind the making of this film? It's dark, twisted, and creepy, and doing my own take on the characters. So today we're going to be turning into Dorothy, played by Judy Garland, who's the main character of the Wizard of Oz film, while talking about the dark sides behind the movie and how it was created. It was made in 1939. This movie is iconic. It's the earlier stages of from black and white to colored film. There was a lot of stuff practiced and done back then that is not done today due to safety hazards and a lot of things. So let's get into it. Turn into Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz with a creepy little twist and talk about the makings of the film. And warning, before we get started, if you don't want to hear about body image, weight, maybe pills, definitely I would skip this because we're about to dive into the dark sides. Very graphic, sad times of Judy Garland face and the actors included in the Wizard of Oz film. So if you're in for that, let's get started. As Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, Judy Garland cemented her place in Hollywood as a beloved icon. Judy played Dorothy, who was the wholesome Kansas farm girl who only wanted to return home after finding herself in the land of Oz. Dorothy was sweet and caring, and audiences were smitten with her from the first scene. But led up to this making of the 1939 classic was far more treacherous landscape for this teenager to navigate through than the fictional perils of the Land of Oz. Garland would endure excruciating long working hours and a studio system that turned a blind eye to her. And in fact, it often encouraged the abuse of substances such as stimulants to keep performers working and sleeping pills to ensure they were able to rest. By the time 17-year-old Judy Garland finished filming The Wizard of Oz, she already was addicted to barbiturates and amphetamines. Her use of drugs had started before this actress slipped into those ruby slippers, in part due to the studio bosses who demanded that she remain thin and energetic to cope with the arduous days of filming. Substance abuse would sadly become an issue. She would fight the remainder of her life until she died of an accidental overdose in 1969 at the young age of 47 years old, leaving behind her 3 children, including Liza Minnelli and Lorna and Joey Luft. She had 5 marriages and a very artistic legacy that was often overshadowed by the tragedies of her short life. Born Frances Ethel Gum in Grand Rapids, Minnesota on June 10, 1922, Judy Garland was pushed to perform at a young age by her mother, Ethel, a frustrated vaudeville performer who put her daughters on the stage as early as she possibly could. At the tender age of just 2.5 years old, Judy Garland was in the spotlight performing alongside her sisters. In later life, Garland would remember her mother as the real wicked witch of the West. According to Get Happy, The Life of Judy Garland, Garland's mother was the first to provide her pills, both for energy and for sleep, to her daughter who is not yet even 10 years old. Signed to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer as a teenager, Judy appeared in more than 24 films for the studio, many with co-star Mickey Rooney himself, who was a teenager at the time. Under contract, she was consistently scrutinized by studio bosses, particularly in reference to her weight. Garland appeared in her feature film in 1936 at the age of 14. It was a musical comedy about football coaches called Pigskin Parade. Studio head Louis B. Mayer and the MGM bosses were reportedly already worried about any extra weight on the diminutive star, going as far to refer to as a fat little pig with pigtails. Placed on what would be first of many diets, Garland's food intake was severely restricted and monitored closely. To maintain her weight, Mayer insisted that she consume only chicken soup, black coffee, and cigarettes, alongside with pills to reduce her appetite. Most of her teen and adult life had been on either Benzedrine or a diet or both. Garland's third husband, Sid Luft, wrote in his memoir, Judy and I, My Life with Judy Garland, unlike other actresses, she could not successfully camouflage extra weight, especially because she was dancing and singing in revealing costumes. She was just 4 foot and 11.5 inches tall, and she could be underweight and still appear heavy or out of proportion on screen. Known as pep pills in the industry, Garland wasn't alone in being forced to take the drugs. Her co-star Rooney, the two appeared in films together such as Babes in Arms, Love Finds Andy Hardy, and Strike Up the Band. And he was also forced to consume them. Both Garland and Rooney were stretched to the limit for the studio, and neither spoke of what they endured until years later. They had us working days and nights on end. They give us pills to keep us on our feet long after we were exhausted. Then they take us to the studio hospital and knock us out with sleeping pills. Mickey sprawled out on one bed and me on another, Garland told biographer Paul Donnelly. Then after 4 hours, they'd wake us up and give us the pep pills again so we could work 72 hours in a row. Half of the time we were hanging from the ceiling, but it was the way of life for us. A year prior to The Wizard of Oz, studio managers were sending memos to each other detailing Garland's food intake. By the time cameras began rolling on film, Garland was already in an upper-downer drug cycle. At the age of 17, Judy Garland was a fleshy teenager heading into early womanhood. To ensure Dorothy's wholesome young appearance wouldn't be questioned by the audience, the studio resorted to strapping Garland's breasts down and utilizing corsets to invoke a small, slim silhouette, on top of a steady diet of drugs and very little food. Judy Garland produced such a performance under such extreme circumstances only highlights her innate talents. Yo-yo dieting and a reliance on pills was now so firmly established that Judy Garland couldn't struggle with both, along with heavy alcohol consumption for the rest of her life. At times, I have been pretty much of a walking advertisement for sleeping pills, Garland said later on in her years. Even though pills come on doctors' prescriptions, as mine did, they can be a tremendous strain on the nervous system. In 2017, Judy Garland's daughter Lorna told Studio 10, I don't think my mother was a victim of the studio system, but it also gave her the ability to channel her talent to all of us as an audience. It was a real double-edged sword. And there was even more carcinogens and deadly dangerous things on the Oz set that Judy Garland endured. Because did you know that the snow in The Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy was in the field of poppies, was made of asbestos? Throughout our history as a country, we've quickly turned on popular products we once liked because of its unintended effects from that product that was usually health related. But perhaps the product we've most famously done this with is asbestos, the naturally occurring fiber crystals which gained infamy after we realized that those fibers were dangerous carcinogens. It's an issue that still gets frequently litigated today due in part to the 27.5 million workers exposed to the substance between 1940 and 1979, according to a report in 1986 by the American Thoracic Society. Health issues related to asbestos were detected as far back as 1897, and the material was linked to mesothelioma as far back as 1930, which is why the material, once considered a miracle fiber, shows up in places where it definitely wouldn't show up today. And one of those places is one of the most popular movies of all time. For decades, The Wizard of Oz was one of the most iconic movies on broadcast television, but somewhat lost on the public all those years is the fact that every time you watch it, you're watching a film that's literally dousing its main characters in carcinogens. It's not over-exaggerating either. During the early days of Hollywood, fake snow was commonly used in place of the real thing, and there weren't any computerized effects that could make it snow. At first, cotton was used, but then a firefighter on a film set pointed out how bad of an idea it was to cover the stage with material that tends to help fire spread. Despite the fact that asbestos health risks were already known at the time, film sets started using one of the purest forms of asbestos on film stages, in part because it was fireproof and looked close enough to snow that it could fool the audience. The effect was widely used by films of the era, but perhaps known for Wizard of Oz's Poppy Field scene, where Dorothy is awoken up from a deep slumber after Glinda, the Good Witch of the South, introduces snow to the scene. That white stuff covering Judy Garland was pure asbestos, of course in crystalline form, making the material a bit more dangerous than, say, in a building material. By the way, there was good odds that the Good Witch didn't know about mesothelioma, because not a lot of people did back then. In defense of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, the other users of asbestos snow in the 1930s, this stuff was common. And not only in film sets, it was not unheard of during the period to purchase Christmas supplies that included a form of fake snow made of asbestos. But the heavy use of the substance in the Wizard of Oz film stands out. Not only because the movie is so famous, but because it highlights the utility that the material played in the filmmaking. The snow wasn't the only asbestos-laden element in the production of the Wicked Witch's broom, which was made of asbestos as well, as was the Scarecrow's entire outfit. In both these cases, the material was used in a somewhat safer way than it was during the snow scene, but in the clothing case in particular, the risk of wearing it is very high. If the costume were to tear and the fibers of the asbestos could have gone into the Scarecrow actor's lungs, likely creating a significant health problem down the line. The actor who originally played the Tin Man was severely ill by the powdered aluminum he wore on his face, with the material leaving him so ill he nearly died. And he was then replaced, and he would have to wait another quarter century for his short immortality. These days, fake snow is a little more elaborate than the stuff back in the 30s. We've created more elaborate techniques mimic the effects, such as the chemical snow used in A Wonderful Life, and the marble dust used in Dr. Zhivago. Sometimes even movies will use actual snow. The whole saga with the Wizard of Oz, in its own way, has something of a modern parallel, if one innate one. Currently, the Motion Picture Association of America is grappling a lawsuit regarding the portrayal of smoking in films. The class action suit involves a product that, like asbestos, causes cancer. And smoking, in many ways significantly more widespread than even asbestos, has become a modern version of asbestos, where we're just now in recent years trying to stop it. Many of us want to blunt its cultural influence, to smooth the problem, to stop the thing that's causing people to get sick. But maybe there's lawyers out there who can help. I hope you guys enjoyed my creepy Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz look, with the bedazzled bloody nose and the poppies. All the products I use in this video will be listed down below in the description box. And those are just some of the scary tales behind the making of the Wizard of Oz, featuring the beautiful, lovely Dorothy, played by Judy Garland. I hope you enjoyed this creepy twist and these sad, crazy tales behind the making of this incredible classic Hollywood movie. Leave a comment down below on what you guys think will be next in this series. I'm so excited. We have so much characters and history to cover. And I will see you guys in the next video, so you can subscribe for more. What do you think will show up next? Love y'all. Bye.